This
Got it.
conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody. We're here at the April meeting of the Board's Enforcement Oversight Committee. The date today is April 15th, 2025. The time now is 9:15 a.m., and we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Stephanie, can you verify meeting attendance for us, please?
Yes, Lori,
Here.
Annie,
Here.
and Julie.
Here.
All right, attendance is verified. First order of business today is to approve the Enforcement Oversight Committee meeting minutes from our last meeting on March 26, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as written or any discussion?
So moved. Second.
That was Annie with the motion and Lori with the second. Okay. Stephanie, go ahead and give us a roll call vote.
Lori,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
and Julie.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries and the minutes are adopted. And on our agenda today, next, we have Dan's case here. I'll go ahead and pass the meeting over to Dan.
Okay, we're looking at 24, 26, 28.
Oh,
Case number.
you know what, Dan? I'm sorry. Let me back up for 3 seconds here. Also in attendance today, we have staff members, myself, Chad Cook, investigator Dan Murphy, and administrative specialist Stephanie Perkins. Okay, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so 24, 26, 28, and you've all had a chance to read the PCR and the documentation, and I believe you have some topics of discussion. We can start with the voting now, and we can open the discussion after that, or however you like. Should we start with the citations?
Lori, do you want to? I'm interested.
If there's discussion, that should probably occur first.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
Sure. So, okay. First of all, I am in complete agreement that something must be done. And I honestly believe that the Oregon Revised Statute 674 covers this, and the board has the authority to discipline this appraiser under ORS 674. I have a real, I have a high level of discomfort about calling this a USPAP ethics rule violation for a variety of reasons. And Chad, I hear what you're saying about the gross negligence and all of that, but the general feeling from USPAP experts across the country, and we've dealt with something very similar to this before in Oregon, is the ethics rule specifically says an appraiser must not perform an assignment in a grossly negligent manner. Well, he never performed an assignment. And so it's not really an ethics rule violation, just like it wouldn't be an ethics rule violation to ghost a client, to accept the assignment and then fail to complete it. Now, this one has an extra layer on that in that he accepted payment and then didn't give it back, but that's really a contractual civil matter. It's not necessarily what you would consider a USPAP ethics rule violation, which I believe is why this provision of ORS 674 was adopted, was so that we did have a way to deal with situations like this without having to cite the ethics rule, which a lot of folks would say does not cover this particular situation. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that we have a way to go without citing ethics and creating drama.
And it is, I mean, that in terms of 674-140, there is the provision that's cited does relate back to conduct and ethics. It just doesn't
Right.
spell out specifically, right, the wording of that specific statute.
Right.
So your position is that because there was no report completed, that it wasn't during the course of his activity as an appraiser.
Well, that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that during what it says is must not perform an assignment in a grossly negligent manner. So he did not complete an assignment, so he couldn't have done it in a negligent manner.
Okay.
Can I add to this? I've got the
Sure.
competency rule up here, and the first part of it says, an appraiser must not render appraisal services in a careless or negligent manner. Could we say that rendering appraisal services could include taking the assignment? This is this is in the competency rule. It's lines 367, 368.
Okay, and that's good, except it's the ethics rule that was cited.
Oh,
Right.
that's true.
I think what go ahead.
True. I'm just saying that I'm trying to find a.
I hear you, Annie. I totally, and all of us are on the same page with this. I totally hear you
Yeah.
on that. It's just that I don't think that him accepting a fee and not refunding it was incompetence. There was something more than that.
He did a little bit more than just accept the fee, though. He
It wasn't
accepted
negligent. Yeah, it wasn't negligent and it wasn't incompetence. It was something different
right,
than that.
but he accepted the assignment. He agreed with them to perform appraisal activity and to provide appraisal services. He did the inspection. He started working on the report. There are two incomplete reports, so he did spend time working as an appraiser to complete the assignment, and accepting the pay was just another part of that while he was engaged to perform as an appraiser of appraisal services. And that's the part where he became negligent, grossly negligent, by just ghosting them, never turning in the report, and never giving them the money back. And the not giving the money back, I agree, could be seen as a civil part of this whole case, but he was definitely engaged, or at least my interpretation is that he was engaged to provide appraisal services, and he did. He went and inspected the property. He started his preliminary research, put part of the report together, and then just vanished.
So again, this is actually, I think it's FAQ 219 addresses this. Do you have that citation available, Dan?
I can in 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
the payment portion of it, it's the ghosting portion of it.
Oh, really? Let's see. Where is that? I've got you up in here. What?
I believe it's FAQ 219.
Hey, can I get a timeout here for a minute? I would like to hear what Annie had to say about competency, because she got cut off, and I'd like to hear her finish what she was saying, because I only got a portion of it before she got cut off. My girl, can you please finish what you were saying about competency?
Yeah. So we're okay. So Julie and I were talking about, we see this as an ethics violation, but it's not something that's spelled out in so many words in USPAP, right? So, and Lori's point was that she was saying that there wasn't a report produced, so that the ethics rule wouldn't apply. Daniel, I'm sorry, I'm backing up a little bit, but Daniel said that there were drafts that were being produced, and so that there was appraisal happening. But what I came up with was just language that's in the competency rule that says, and I have to find it here. That says that an appraiser should not perform appraisal services in a negligent manner. And so performing appraisal services is more than just the report. So I was kind of trying to say that the language of the competency rule includes language that would include stuff that isn't just, standards 1 and 2, but other stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, can I jump in real quick before we
Yeah.
move on? So
Yeah,
as far as the practical moving forward, if what I'm hearing is that we want to take another look at this and kind of table this right now and go back and look at whether or not the competency rule applies, we can do that. That's a real common, well, not super common, but it's a thing that the board has done in the past when there's discussion on an EOC and not everybody necessarily feels in one direction. Or if everybody decides that, we need to look at this again or in a different way, there's been case history where we can go backwards and reopen the investigation and continue on where we left off and take another look at the documentation and the information and stuff. That being said, as far as competency goes, this is where, in terms of talking to an appraiser, putting it in absolute most basic layman's terms, when someone is incompetent, it means that they didn't know the right thing to do when they were there in that moment.
Yes.
Negligence is knowing the right thing to do and making a different choice because of some other reasoning, right? That's not supported by your peers, or
Could we just,
that's not a formal definition, but
is
you get
it,
what I'm saying.
could there be a kind of a perspective about financial incompetence in terms of running his business? I mean, is it that? Or do we
That's
just go back to what Lori was saying about 674? Do we just need to?
and that is really the crux of the discussion today, I think, in terms of whether or not ethics apply. I think it's pretty clear that and we can get to, we'll get to that citation eventually, but I think that's the crux of the question. And for me, and this is just my personal interpretation of the situation, it crosses the line of FAQ 219 in terms of that FAQ is about due dates and turn times and things. This was not necessarily a turn time or due date issue. It was a performance of duties on while we were engaged to be an appraiser. They had to cancel the assignment because we were negligent in what we were trying to do, or what we were hired to do, which is why we have a license, right? We were hired because we have a license, and that license dictates how we behave. And that behavior in this case doesn't match up with what would be normally ethically expected from your peers. Now, with that said, there is some argument about whether or not this particular issue relates to appraisal practice, and that's for the three of you to discuss. I don't want to influence that process. I just wanted to kind of summarize where we're at, what we could do moving forward. But also for me, that's I understand both points of view.
Yeah.
This is one of those areas that it's good that we have three of you making a decision, is what I'll say. So I don't want to take up any more of the airtime here, but I just wanted to
Sure.
put that.
Dan, did you have something to add? Are you looking at 219?
No, I agree. So when I'm putting these reports together, I think about what is potential. And so this could be potentially interpreted as a violation of the ethics rule conduct section. And the reason we have the EOC in place is just so we can do what we're doing right now. I call it out for potential, and then we vote on it. So it's not just me, and it's not just Chad making the ultimate decision for this appraiser. We have three other experts that can interpret it in another way, and that's why we have this. I'm never offended when my citations are voted down, because I think that means the process is working. If I hadn't put it on there, we might be having another discussion today about, well, should we maybe have considered the ethics rule in addition to 674, 140? And so I'm happy either way, and I can go either way. I think the potential is there to interpret the ethics rule, the conduct section of the ethics rule, because he was engaged, he was acting as an appraiser, he started the process of providing the appraisal service, and then blanked out and vanished, and also throw on the pot that he took the money and ran and didn't ever turn it in either. So I'm comfortable with going either way, and I can see it either way. I can see the logic behind the argument either direction.
I'd like to hear Julie's. She's the only one we haven't kind of heard it. Julie, what are you thinking? I'm going to turn it back around to you there.
Well, I pulled up the ethics rule, and it says an appraiser must promote and preserve the public trust inherent in appraisal practice by observing the highest standards of professional ethics. So I read through all these documents, and I am very empathetic towards the appraiser's situation. It sounds like there was an illness. I'm empathetic to that, but it also shows I kind of feel like if you don't set a standard and this happens again, like the question becomes, why didn't anything happen before this? We have a public trust issue already with appraisers. It's inherent in our job. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. It is inherent with our job. There, and like not upholding the public trust, we have to take very seriously. And I do agree with the ethics rule violation because I think it is inherent in here. Am I empathetic? 150%. There's a situation going on here. However, when you sign a contract and take some money up front, you're engaging in an appraisal. You're saying, I'm going to do this for you. And like, I'm really sorry that this happened to him. I'm really sorry for the property owner because it sounds like it went sideways on them. I am sorry about it, but I also think something has to be done because if we let people off, then this continues to happen with the, well, you let that person off, you let that person off, but I'm the one you're going to hold the standard to. And I only have my experience in this from when I started this to know, like, has it happened before? I don't know. I know right now that we have to be very careful about upholding standards, and public trust is probably the most important standard that we have to look at.
100%.
So just a question. So having the ORS citation and not the ethics rule citation, I mean, you could still potentially revoke his license under ORS 674, right?
That's the thing that I was wondering if you were all considering. If the ethics violation, if you don't find agreement with the ethics violation, but you do see 674 and 140,
Yes.
that's him losing his license potentially.
That's
Not the ethics rule. If the ethics rule goes away, then that's just that. It's just an
That's
ethics
exactly
violation.
where I was
my
gonna
whole
say, Dan,
point.
yeah.
Is
Okay.
rather going
674,
down. Sorry.
With or without the citation of the
140,
ethics
13A and B, your first violation of that is a revocation of your license. It doesn't say anything about adding the ethics rule to it. I didn't know if this was the proper spot to discuss that.
Right. And I'm in complete agreement with the second citation, Dan. It's the ethics rule one. I just think it's a slippery slope because
Yeah.
the final statement in FAQ 219, it says an appraiser failing to comply with contractual obligations could potentially be potentially subject to civil penalties. So what they're saying is that that's a civil matter, not, so anyway, that was my feeling is, I don't want to put it this way. I mean, you still got him on the Oregon revised statute, forgive me for putting it that way, without Oregon setting a precedent with the ethics rule violation. That was my point.
I'm
And
gonna
Lori,
say, I'm gonna say, Daniel, and you brought this up that there were drafts of appraisal reports that were sort of in the works. Okay, I guess that's the tipping point for me in terms of the ethics rule.
that was development though. They were not reported or communicated to
An
a
appraiser
client.
must not perform an assignment.
Okay.
An appraiser must not perform an assignment in a grossly negligent manner. Once you start, and the sequence of how this goes is that you don't start writing a draft of a report until you've done work.
Perform some services. Yeah.
Yeah, the services are you're performing an assignment the minute you start putting together a work file and putting together drafts of things and collecting information. He did his inspections. That's appraising. So, especially since there's actually draft document, like document drafts, to me, that's part of performing an assignment. It's just that he didn't finish. So that's where I'm at. I think sort of come around on that.
So just to jump in and again put the 2 cents in here, as far as what Dan was saying, we have a disciplinary matrix for consistency, and it basically identifies low end things that don't result in a lot, and then all the way up to this is the worst thing ever, and here's the worst consequence ever.
and for your first time and your second time and your third time.
And it's all based on a consistent methodology of here's where we go next, or here, right, here's where we start, here's where we go next. As far as all of that goes, the activity in question, or the act in question, I guess, that's the subject of this compliance report, isn't. I can see Lori's point too. It's not related to the quality of the appraisal product that was given or the date that it was given or any of those things. The issue that was brought up was we've been swindled essentially. And if they don't have a product to show for it, yes, this occurred during the appraisal process. I can see both sides very clearly, I can absolutely agree with the perspective on both sides. My concern is this is an issue that for appraisers that have done their best to keep their clients happy and protect the public trust could be an emotional response issue, right? We want to make sure that that's not a part of the decision making. As far as if a part of USPAP applies, we could also go back and look at the preamble of USPAP. That's a binding part of USPAP as well. If it's not necessarily ethics, there may be some things in the preamble that address that. Or if you guys want to continue discussing and move on to voting, that's fine too. But just so you know, with or without that ethics rule, I don't believe the level of potential discipline is going to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Chad. So it seems to me that we could probably just go ahead and vote on this one. Unless Annie and Julie have any further discussion on the matter.
I do. I'm a little confused where this is going. So obviously I was tardy and you guys were talking about this before I even got here. So my question is, like, it seems like there's like wishy-washiness as far as if this is an ethics rule violation or if this is an ORS 674-140 violation. Like, I don't know what you guys were talking about. Like that.
We saved the case discussion, Julie. We saved the case discussion for the on the record portion. There were just a few clarifying questions as far as outside of whether or not these violations applied. There was just some pre-meeting conversation around stuff, and it really didn't have to do with the meat of the case itself. So
okay,
you're not coming in late. No, I just wanted to make it clear that I have personal feelings on this one, and it's good that I'm not on the EOC today.
I think, Julie, I don't think it's a matter of is it a violation of either or. I think it's whether it's ORS, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's ORS 674 and also maybe the ethics.
Yeah, for sure. 674-140 for sure.
Yeah.
And Julie, just for in terms of historical clarity, the job of the investigator and the staff is to present the facts as we've seen or read them and allow you guys to make a decision on what those facts mean or what the investigator's assessment means. And it's not always that we want a certain direction or a thing in a case. That's not necessarily why we've put something in there. It's that this is one of the possible iterations of an interpretation, and we wanted to put it before you guys so that you can interpret that and figure out what those things mean and make recommendations to the board. This is when we give a PCR, we're not trying to coach anybody in a direction. We're just putting facts on the table and saying, what do you all think about these things and what do you recommend to the board? And then once you make a recommendation, I can go back if there's reason to, I can go back and potentially negotiate settlements with appraisers, or it can end up being just a notice of potential discipline. Like this is just part of that process where we wanted to give you the unvarnished facts so that you can determine whether or not you guys think the ethics rule applies, whether or not we think it applies or not. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. So are we voting on whether they both apply or whether just one of them applies? Is that what we're voting on?
We'll vote on each rule separately, yes.
You guys talked at the same time, so I didn't hear what you said.
We're voting on they're both of them as they're presented in the PCR. So we'll
Okay.
vote on the ethics rule, and you all vote yay or nay, and then we'll vote on 674, and then you vote yay or
Okay.
nay. Yeah.
Sorry. Second time here. Didn't know.
No, you're doing great, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, you ready to proceed to voting?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Ethics rule. Conduct.
Lori,
No.
Annie,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
ORS 674, 140, 13, A and B.
Lori,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Okay. That concludes my part of the EOC. As always, I give my thanks to Lori and Annie and Julie for being here and helping us put together this process, which makes this whole investigation thing more transparent. I appreciate your time.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
And
work on this one.
I wanted like to second Julie's compassion for this particular appraiser. It is an unfortunate circumstance when this happens with.
Absolutely.
I think all the appraisers in the room feel the same way. I can absolutely empathize, but we're not. That is part of what we're here to do, right? But officially, our job is to protect public trust, and that's pretty significant issue when we violate that trust. So, okay, well, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda today, folks, unless you guys want to raise another topic for discussion. Maybe the next EOC meeting date.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, as soon as we can, the more we can clear out, the better.
Mm-hmm.
What
So
are
we
we
have
looking
our-
at for dates? Are we doing this in a month? Is that, I can't remember. Is it just
I
somewhere
think
in-
where we're at the 15th now, we could do the first. Ordinarily, it's the first week of the month, the first Wednesday of the month for the enforcement committee, but that's not a hard and fast rule. Just like board meetings have been typically Mondays, but they can be Tuesdays, they could be Thursdays. That's all up to you. Let's set that schedule. As far as right now, where we're at in our current cases, Dan, do you think we would have something in? So the timeline looks like this. We're at the 15th now. If we were to have the EOC on the first Wednesday of May, that would be the 7th. That's roughly 3 weeks away. In order to get things to the EOC, they first have to go to the appraiser. They get a response timeline, and that's usually 7 to 10 days. If we so from the date of the enforcement committee, I usually send that stuff out a week or so ahead of time, maybe 6 days ahead of time. So back that up from the 6th to the 29th for me to send you folks the stuff. Ideally, we need to have that appraiser's response when I send you the initial packet. Otherwise, I have to send it to you after the fact. So then we'd be looking at, let's rewind another 10 days. That's 7 days would be the 22nd. That would be the date of the board meeting next week. 8, 9, 10. So essentially, we would need to get something out to the appraiser this Friday in order to get the right timelines and things and responses and due process to have an enforcement committee meeting on the 6th. If we were to schedule it for the 13th, which would be a little less than a month from now.
Looking at the 7th or the 14th.
Okay, so it would be the 7th or the 14th potentially. And the 7th puts us in kind of a tight timeline. Does that make sense? So I guess that's the question, Dan, is do you think you would have a case by the 7th, or is the 14th the better bet?
I think the 14th is definitely a better bet. This one is, the one I'm looking at now is not maybe run of the mill. It might take a little bit more time and get to the appraiser. And I just popped it open, so probably more realistic to look for the 14th.
Sure. If it's just one case, because that's just one more that the board would be able to hear before the ASC comes, right?
Right.
So maybe one case isn't worth it for Dan to have to, rush.
Rushed.
And
I was thinking the same thing. I don't think he should have to be rushed to do this.
Okay, so we could do it the second week of May, or we could hold the May EOC in favor of a June, because the data collection for the ASC ends, I believe the period is the June 26th is the cutoff. So anything that we do in June is also a part of that compliance record that's going to be reported to them. So they'll have up-to-date info as of June 26th. So as far as holding a bunch of EOCs between then and now, I'd be less concerned with that and more concerned with just let's get as many cases as we can. And if that means potentially giving Dan some breathing room to work through May for a June EOC, that's another option.
Sure. And the ASC would be happy enough with us having them at that stage, even though the board hasn't voted on them?
I mean, they'll still be open cases, but that's
Right.
one of those things that within the narrative of here's where Oregon stands, that these cases have made it through the EOC and are on the
Yeah.
way to settlement. Especially if I've gotten at that point, we may have settlement agreements if they're negotiated for
Wow.
some of these cases. They may even be signed by the appraiser, just not by the board. So that's a pretty clear, right? That's one step from closed.
That should make them happy.
Happier, yeah.
I will say that in my June is a little bit busy. I'm going to be in New York between the 4th and the 12th.
Okay.
And I have a trial the week before. So I'm going to be available. Let's see what else I have. And yeah, and I'm going in for surgery. My June is a little, it's going to be down to just a few days in June that I'm going to be able to really be there, unless we go towards the end of way to the end of the month, and it sounds like we want to meet before the 26th. Mm-hmm. So, however you guys want to do it, but
Annie, does the last week of May work better? The 26th.
The last week of May, I have a trial in Salem. Okay. The 27th through the 30th.
Gotcha.
So that's Tuesday through Friday that week.
And you probably want Monday to prepare, yeah?
Yeah, I'll probably be traveling I mean, Monday morning I could probably do that, and then I'd drive to Salem that afternoon.
That Monday the 25th is Memorial Day.
Oh yeah, Monday's Memorial Day.
What about the week of May 19th?
That is better for me.
Okay. We could do Wednesday the 21st. At this point, wide open, really. So that would be up to you folks for scheduling.
Julie, does that work for you?
Am I going to still be on this team in May?
You're still an alternate. So at the next board meeting, the board will be appointing a permanent EOC member. If you're comfortable serving as an alternate, but really time-wise don't know if you could do this permanently, that's absolutely fine for you to say.
Okay.
If you're
I wasn't sure what was happening, but I have meetings on the 21st.
Julie, they only ask the coolest people to be on the EOC. You realize that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be a Wednesday, right?
No, it can be whatever day you guys want it to be. Absolutely.
I have the 20th open. Can you guys do Annie, is the 20th open for you?
I have a 9 a.m. appointment already, but I can do an afternoon on Tuesday.
What about you, Lori?
Yeah, I can make that work.
If we did like a 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Tuesday the 20th.
Sure. All right. So if everybody's on board with that, we've got the date of the next EOC, May 20th at 2 p.m.
Yep.
Okay. So unless there's anything else, we can entertain a motion to adjourn now.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Lori with the motion, Julie with the second. Stephanie, go ahead and give us a roll call to approve.
Okay. Lori?
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
and Annie.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. And the time now is 9:50 a.m. and the meeting's adjourned, everybody. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.